If you're hearing this, I'm already dead. I don't start with that for drama. I start with that because it's a condition of release. My access was contingent on something I signed in a room with no windows, and that document says this material goes public only in the event of my non-responsiveness for more than 72 hours. The system pings me every 12. I have not answered for 6 cycles. I am a reporter. I've spent 14 years on defense programs, audit trails, procurement shell games, and recovery teams that are not officially real. I have seen compartmentalized budgets broken into single-digit invoice lines and buried in agriculture subsidies. I have verified black site flight paths by matching jet fuel deliveries to runway abrasion. I don't print campfire stories. I print math. This is not a campfire story. What you're about to hear was not offered freely. It was extracted in pieces, under controlled conditions, from a career human asset handler operating under a false logistics cover in the Great Basin. He did not come to me. He was burned, contained, and told to sign a post-incident non-disclosure that read like a last rite. I did not meet him in a bar. I met him in a rented dental office with the lead shielding still in the walls and tape over the windows. He speaks on record in first person. I confirmed who he was. Names are changed. Call signs are not. Dates are real. Coordinates are real. Tail numbers are real. The mountain is real. The unit designation is altered 1 character off, by agreement, so you can't foyer it clean. You'll notice those edits. I am telling you up front where I bent. If you don't hear me signal a bend, I did not bend it. Here is what I can verify without redaction. On October 6, 2025, a 7-person mixed element under an improvised tasking order was deployed into a restricted training area in Nevada colloquially called Mountain Warfield. Warfield is not its map name. It's what range control and air crews call that cluster of ridgelines and sinkholes north of Tonopah because once, in the 90s, a live fire test cooked off a pallet of inert dummies with real tracer belts mixed in. The name stuck. The ground is cold basalt and broken target hulks. The air smells like burnt brake dust and sage. Static hangs there longer than weather says it should. Pilots hate it. 12 Rangers had gone missing there 2 nights earlier. That's the official phrasing: off schedule, non-responsive, potential disorientation due to weather and terrain. The language reads like altitude sickness. The telemetry does not. I've seen fragments of the telemetry. I got those from a civil air traffic source who thought he was sending me a glitch example for an unrelated story. The Ranger team's trackers don't drop. They don't fade. They don't scatter. They all spike to the same lat long within 4 decimal places, then stop transmitting in the same microsecond. That's not a whiteout. That's not a fall. That's a kill switch. I checked that coordinate against Bureau of Land Management parcel maps, DoD withdrawn land notices, FAA flight restrictions, DOE exclusion blocks, and old USGS survey maps from the underground test era. Nothing should be there. No bunker, no shaft, no cable run, no comms relay, no weather node. The parcel shows as unmaintained high desert with no mineral value. The report I read says there's a door. I can also verify this. After those 12 went silent, Command did not spin up a conventional rescue. No helos with FLIR, no pararescue, no Civi search grid. They wrote a false training scenario and pushed in an off-books retrieval element under a nuclear incident pretext. That is not rumor. That is paperwork. I have seen the language block. Radiological accountability sweep, it says. Source integrity audit, it says. You do not send a human intelligence case officer and a linguist to audit a radiological source unless you already know the thing. In the ground is not a lost warhead. I can tell you why this didn't go through normal channels. In normal channels, missing Tier 1 shooters inside a live range triggers a storm. You shut down airspace. You pull satellite. You get eyes from three-letter agencies that don't admit they watch domestic soil. You brief Congress behind a locked door and promise them it's weather. You do not lie low. You do not run it quiet. You can't. Too many feeds light up. But that didn't happen. Airspace did not hard close. Civilian overflights were told, temporary telemetry maintenance. I checked that against FAA logs. It's there. A polite little circle. The circle does not mention lost personnel, hazardous plume, or live fire. It says, and I'm quoting line 3, intermittent transponder interference expected, no deviation required. That is absurd on its face. If you think you're going to fly your commuter jet over a radiation leak, they don't tell you no deviation required. They reroute you 100 miles wide. Someone wanted no eyes, but also no noise about no eyes. Someone wanted it quiet, but legal. Someone laundered custody. That phrase matters. Custody is who officially holds the incident. If something happens in a place that technically doesn't exist, and the bodies technically don't exist, and the unit technically isn't there, then whoever signs first owns the after-action, the narrative, and the burial detail. If you keep changing the signatory, if you slice the team across compartments and tell each slice they're on loan to logistics, nobody ever quite owns the whole. When nobody owns the whole, nobody files the crime. That exact laundering pattern shows up in other Black World recoveries. I've seen it in downed hardware retrievals near Fallon, in exotic material handoffs in eastern Syria, and in one case I am still under injunction not to describe from the Baltic. The ED rhythm is always the same. Break the team, shift the codes, deny the chain of command even exists. It only shows up when two things are true at once. 1. High-value asset on the ground. 2. Plausible war crime by sunrise. Understand this before you listen to what follows. What follows is presented as sworn testimony. The speaker you're about to hear calls himself Ledger. That is not his birth name. It is not the name on his passports. It is the name he used under Directorate of Operations Authority when he was tasked to maintain, retain, and, if necessary, reacquire human assets in denial environments. Denial environments means places we're not supposed to be. Reacquire means buy them back if they get grabbed. He is not a shooter. He is not demo. He is what you send in when you don't want to say you're negotiating with kidnappers on Iranian soil. His signature sits under at least 4 compartment designations I can confirm. 2 in Near East, 1 in counter-proliferation, 1 in domestic irregular. His clearance tier is real. His timeline in Nevada matches fuel logs, badge swipes, and 1 security camera reflection I pulled off a vending machine faceplate in Tonopah. I'm not guessing. I did the work. Here is what I cannot fully verify, and you need to know that too. I cannot independently prove what he says was under that mountain. I cannot independently prove what he says walked out. I have secondary evidence that something left the restricted area and reached a motel on the east side of Reno less than 9 hours later. I have footage. The footage is corrupted in a way that looks like water in the lens but behaves like a compression error. It eats light around edges. The shadows don't land right. The audio has a low cycling hum under the room tone that doesn't map to AC, ice machine, highway bleed, or refrigerator compressor. I ran it through a spectrum tool. The hum is not constant. It pulses in repeating clusters of 12. I counted those pulses against the Ranger roster. You don't want the match to be what it is. You're going to hear Ledger describe an access point that does not show on satellite, an internal volume that does not match the hill profile, structural elements that predate English labeled in English, and a system designation that repeats in later intercepts tied to overseas incidents. You're going to hear him describe containment, binding, and time debt, as if they're logistical terms. You will want to call it supernatural. He will not. He hates that word. He uses hardware language, not scripture. He will talk about shielding, bleed, load, and anchor. Listen for those words. He leans on them like he's afraid of the other words. I am releasing this because the shape of this story now repeats across multiple regions, multiple services, and multiple years. The same phrases surface again and again, like copy-paste doctrine. Witness. Compliance. Do not answer if it talks. I have those phrases in British Special Operations notes from the Falklands in 1982. I have them in Russian debris fragments from Murmansk, Winter Exercises, 1997. I have them in a redacted Air Force Safety Stand-Down memo from a DW line inspection in 2009. Those are not connected units. They should not share language. They share language. You can tell yourself it's coincidence. You can tell yourself I'm being played. You can tell yourself this is disinformation seeded to drive a budget line. I've seen that trick too. Curve a monster story into an appropriations ask, and Congress will fund anything with a shiny enough acronym. This isn't that. No one asked me for money. Normal channels failed this story on purpose. Normal channels are part of the threat. So here's the line in the sand. What follows is the operative's testimony. My name in the system was Ledger. I held blue spectrum clearance under Directorate of Operations Near East Mission Center, Compartment Hum Retain, Sub-Compartment 7H. That meant I was authorized to maintain, move, and, if necessary, buy back human sources in denial environments. I wasn't a shooter. I wasn't demo. I walked assets through pressure until they broke or came home. My cover was commercial logistics arbitration. My physical base of movement that week sat at 37.799 north, 116 to 781 west, 2 floors above a shuttered dental lab outside Tonopah Test Range. The date on my tasking sheet was October 8, 2025. The tasking sheet said, Radiological Accountability Sweep. That is not what we were asked to do. We were written as separate consultancy elements under different tasking codes. That was the first problem. You don't splice people from different compartments into one van unless you don't plan on filing the after action into any single compartment. When that happens, it means someone upstairs is laundering custody. When someone launders custody, either a war crime is about to happen or a miracle is about to be claimed. Sometimes both. We staged in a motor pool cage that still smelled like solvent and old brake dust. The concrete floor was cold through my boots. The air tasted like dry copper. Range control had cut lights to half power, so all the shadows leaned long and wrong. Nobody said the word rescue. Team composition on paper, call sign, Bishop, former 75th Ranger Regiment, now civilian contractor, which means still owned, just off the books. Breech lead, he carried suppressed 10.5, carbine, short barrel, IR laser taped, thermal optic, fixed sling, no unit patch. He wore a plate carrier that had been scrubbed of ID with a heat gun. He checked everyone's safeties like a parent checks stove knobs. Call sign Halo. EOD, but not just bombs. She ran portable spectrometry, gamma sniffers, neutron counters, dirty source confirms. Halo had a Pelican case stenciled as water filtration media. The actual guts were a Canberra radiogem and a custom wand taped up with chem-light, tubing to look boring at a distance. Shoulder rig, sidearm, hair braided tight to not foul under a hood. Halo watched dose the way other people watched ammo. Call sign, choir. Linguist, signals, soft face, quiet posture. Official story said, liaison interpreter for possible foreign origin material markings. That was code for, we don't know what language we're going to see, but you're going to tell us if it's Russian, Farsi, Korean, or something we'll have to invent a story for. Choir carried no visible long gun, just a suppressed sidearm and a ruggedized tablet with a rubberized red lens filter to kill light spill. He smelled like machine oil and mint gum. Call sign, torque, comms, and power. He kept us talking. He kept us on battery. He was issued a rolling pack the size of a coffin with fold-out masts, signal boosters, spare SATCOM pucks, redundant encrypted handhelds, and a sled of lithium blocks ratchet strapped in. The case exterior read generator fuel valves. Torku had the eyes of someone who could fall asleep standing up against a server rack. He had thick scar lines around his wrists where cuffs had once sat too long. Then there was me. Ledger, hum, retain. Civilian, tie, deniable body. My job was to talk if something intelligent was on the other side of a door. My job was to recognize panic in a living asset and pull them out before they burned. I had a suppressed sidearm, a soft armor underlayer, and a throat mic keyed to Torque's net. I also had a fold-flat contract packet with signatures that made this look like a DOE audit. If we got rolled by anyone with a badge, I was supposed to speak first. We also had a seventh, call sign Chapel. Chapel was the handler. Chapel wasn't supposed to exist. You could smell that in the way range control wouldn't look at him when he walked past. He had the build of a chaplain and the eyes of a finance officer. No kit except a binder and a pistol he didn't seem fully comfortable with. Chapel stayed on the phone. Chapel said phrases like source integrity, containment posture, and pre-incident narrative. Chapel wore a visitor badge that didn't have a color code I recognized. It was matte black with a silver diagonal slash like a hazard stripe. I've never seen that badge shade in any other installation. We were told we were to confirm radiological source integrity for a subsurface training cache in a closed range sometimes called Mountain Warfield. We were told the 12 missing Rangers were on a separate, unrelated live-fire lane. We were told not to use the word missing. We were told to use off schedule. That language was already wrong. Rangers don't go off schedule in a cluster of 12 at once. They either exfil or one dies and the others drag him, or air picks them up. They don't vanish like a software process shutting down. They had been off net 40 hours when we got spun up. 40 hours is past golden time for a winter night. Survival profile. You stop talking rescue. You start talking recovery. Nobody used either word. Bishop kept checking his watch like he wanted to say body count and couldn't. We loaded kit. Torque complained about EM noise in the motor pool. He said his handheld was reading connected to a repeater he hadn't extended yet. He shook the unit like a TV remote. The status light stayed green. Torque said, "I'm getting call and response from nowhere," and Chapel told him to log it but not to transmit a fault-up channel. That was the second problem. If your comms guy reports a phantom link, you either halt and troubleshoot or you abort. You do not tell him log it and roll anyway, unless you already know normal rules aren't going to apply where you're going. Halo popped the camber case to do a baseline sweep. She read the air in the motor pool. Ambient was fine. Then she swept the underside of Bishop's plate carrier as a joke. The wand chirped. Bishop froze. Halo frowned, dialed sensitivity down, passed the wand again. Dead, quiet. She said it was a false positive. Bishop said nothing. The wand had sung like it hit a live pellet of spent fuel, then gone silent like it had never happened. I watched Halo's throat work. She wrote something on tape and stuck it inside her wrist guard instead of calling it out. This was before we even left the building. I want to mark the human part because it matters later. My human stake was Hannah. Hannah was 34 weeks pregnant. She'd been texting me about a rattle in the air conditioner in our apartment in Henderson. She sent me a video of the vent making a dry clicking sound like cards in bicycle spokes. I hadn't told her I was spinning up. I told her I'd be back in time for her next scan, and I'd bring the good dumplings from the place down on Lake Mead. I had a ring in my right cargo pocket. I hadn't given it to her yet. I was going to propose in the car after the scan, stupid and late and romantic. That ring was sitting against my thigh under 2 layers of fabric while Chapel told us no one was missing. We got final brief in a room with dead clocks. All 3 wall clocks had their seconds hands shaking but not progressing. The air tasted stale, metallic, like penny shavings on the tongue. Chapel said our mission profile was confirm no fissile material has migrated from historical subsurface containment to atmosphere. He said the language fast. He did not say lost warhead. He did not say broken arrow. He did not say leak. He said migrated. That is not DOE vocabulary. That felt like someone trying to retrofit nuclear language onto something that isn't nuclear. Bishop asked for ROE, rules of engagement. Chapel said there was no indigenous presence. That phrase hit me wrong. We're in Nevada, not Kandahar. You don't say indigenous presence stateside unless you're reading off a template built for overseas. Torque asked chain of command for exfil call if we hit dose above yellow. Chapel didn't answer. He pretended not to hear. Choir asked if there were any cultural or language sensitivities he needed to prep for. Chapel said, "Do not answer it if it talks." That was when the room went quiet. Those were his exact words. "Do not answer it if it talks." We all heard the shape of that. We pretended we didn't. Chapel slid a manila folder across a folding table toward Bishop. Inside was a topo printout with a red box. No GPS grid printed. The red box was Mountain Warfield. The paper still smelled like fresh toner. Chapel tapped the box and said, "Entry is marked. You'll see it." Bishop said, "You said subsurface containment. You saying there's a hatch?" Chapel said, "You'll see it." He never said Rangers. He never said bodies. He never said rescue. We rolled at 2240 local. Dust blew low off the tarmac and licked at our boots like static. The night outside the bay smelled like rain that hadn't fallen. The moon sat behind thin cloud and looked like a bulb through frosted glass. I pulled my gloves on and felt grit already inside the seams. We hadn't even left the fence line and I already felt dirty. Everything was already off, and we hadn't moved 1 mile yet. I marked that in my head. I marked that the clocks didn't tick. I marked that the Canberra wand lied. I marked that Torque's radio talked to nothing. I marked that Chapel said, "Do not answer it if it talks," like he was giving dietary restrictions for a catered lunch. We weren't going on a sweep. We were going somewhere Command didn't want on paper to pull something Command wanted more than 12 missing men. That was the third problem. We still rolled. We didn't come in on a stack of Blackhawks like a recruitment ad. We didn't get fast rope footage. That kind of insertion leaves signatures you can't erase. We went in quiet, low, boring, like contractors headed to fix a fence. We took 2 tan F-5850 range trucks with GOV plates that didn't match the state. Torque drove lead. Bishop rode shotgun with the topo. Halo and Choir and Chapel and I were in back under a sagging canvas topper that smelled like sun-baked canvas, diesel soak, and old sweat. The metal bed hummed under us from road vibration. My knee sat against the Pelican with the Canberra gear. I could feel the cold of the plastic through my pants. Every time the truck hit washboard, the ring in my pocket tapped my thigh like a metronome. We cleared the outer gate on a badge flash. The guard wore nods flipped up, but not powered. His patch said range security. Not Air Force, not DOE, not Sheriff. He didn't scan our IDs. He didn't log plate numbers. He just waved us through like we were late for church. That told me he'd been pre-briefed at a classification level above his actual pay grade. That also told me someone had already told him not to ask questions. You can smell that kind of fear in the way a junior guy's jaw locks. We drove north-northwest along a service track that wasn't on any public BLM map. The ground outside was scrub, basalt plates, and torn-up target hulks. You could still see old armor silhouettes out there with their paint cooked off, edges white from years of sun and sand blasting. The air that night had that cold, high desert bite. You could taste alkaline dust building on your tongue. Every breath felt like licking a 9-volt. We killed headlights at the second cattle gate. That wasn't procedure. There are cats out here. Free-range burrow, half-buried test junk, trip hazards everywhere. You don't black out a truck convoy in broken ground unless you're more afraid of being seen from above than you are of snapping an axle. Torque threw on passive IR. Bishop rode one hand light on the dash like he could will the truck steady. The world outside went green-white through the slits in the topper. Sagebrush became bones. Basalt became oil slicks. The sky felt low. I checked my phone out of habit. No bars, no surprise. Then I saw something that made my stomach lock. The time display on my phone said 08.14. I blinked. We had left the motor pool at 22:40 and had not been rolling 1 hour. I cupped the phone, killed, and restarted. Still 08.14. AM. Different date. My phone thought it was the next morning already. Torque's handheld radio still showed connected. We had line of sight to no tower. Instruments notice first. Torque muttered, "That's not funny," like someone was pranking him. Chapel leaned forward from the dark and said, "All devices local only from this point. No outgoing, no incoming, record only. You acknowledge." Torque didn't answer. Bishop said, "He acknowledges." Torque swallowed hard enough that I heard it over the truck rattle. We cut off the service track onto open ground. No more ruts. The truck floated and dipped like a boat. Out past the low ridge line you could see Mountain Warfield. You won't find that name on a map. It's not a single peak. It's a crown of dark uplifted rock around a shallow basin like a cracked bowl. From a distance, in starlight, the slopes look the color of old gun barrels. Dead. Dry. No structure. Nothing man-made. That's what eyes said. The GPS Torque, strapped to the dash, disagreed. Torque had a military-grade handheld GPS puck with encrypted Blue Force tracking. The little screen should have shown terrain, waypoints, elevation, and our breadcrumb trail. Instead, it showed a flat grid like graph paper, with a single pulsing point labeled Entry in block caps. No lat long, no contour lines, no breadcrumb. We hadn't been walking yet, and already our trail was erased. Torque slapped the side of the puck with the back of his knuckles. The entry point pulsed and threw a range, 184 meters. Chapel leaned in like a vulture. He said, "That's your mark. Park at 200. Approach last 20 on foot. White light off." Bishop said, "Copy," like we were doing a routine recon lane. I pressed my palm flat on the truck bed to steady. The metal felt wrong. It had that faint thrum you get standing near a transformer coil. Low, tooth rattling. My molars buzzed. I tasted ozone. Quire rubbed at his temples like he had a headache behind his eyes. We went dark at what Torque guessed was 200 meters. Torque killed the engine. The sudden silence rang. You don't realize how loud a diesel is until it stops and your ears are still shaking. The desert night rushed in. Low, cold wind, sage smell. Distant hum that wasn't wind. We dismounted, boots on broken ground. Crunch of pebble and glassy slag. My breath steamed. Bishop made a stagger in a loose diamond. Halo had her camera wand out already, tube taped up to hide the glow. She swept it low along the ground. The wand chirped once, then went dead. Halo smacked it with her palm. "Nothing," she muttered. "Batteries were green 10 minutes ago." Torquio whispered, "EM's thick as soup." Chapel hissed, "Quiet," even though no one above a rabbit could have heard us at that distance. The smell changed when we crossed an invisible line. One step we had sage and cold rock. Next step the air felt warmer and tasted like burnt electrical insulation. Warm plastic. Overheated wiring. That smell does not belong in open desert at 2330 with night wind cutting off the basin. My throat went tight. I swallowed grit, and it felt like chewing glass. We crested a low lip of broken basalt and saw the basin floor. Eyes said empty. Instruments said we were standing on top of a structure. Torque held the GPS puck up like a dowsing rod. The entry point that had been ahead of us was now beneath us, still pulsing. The range readout said 000. The puck thought we were standing at the door. Under my boots I felt faint vibration, rhythmic. 12-beat clusters, then a pause. 12-beat clusters, then a pause. I didn't like that number. Bishop scanned with IR. Nothing. No heat bloom. No hatch outline. Flat rock and dust. Quire closed his eyes and tilted his head like he was listening under the wind. He whispered, "You hear that?" I didn't at first. Then I did. It wasn't sound. It was pressure clicking in the bones behind my ears, like someone softly tapping my skull from inside with a finger. Fast, slow, fast, fast, slow. Almost like language you feel instead of hear. Chappell said, "Do not engage. Do not acknowledge." He sounded calm. Too calm. His breath smelled like stale coffee and copper. Bishop crouched and brushed dust with his glove. The dust wasn't right. It wasn't all tan grit and black pebble like high desert floor. Some of it was darker, almost oily. When his glove passed through it, it clumped and held shape, then relaxed and spread like it had surface tension. Sand doesn't do that. Oil does. Blood does. Halo knelt and touched a gloved fingertip to the ground. She brought it up, rolled it under her thumb. She whispered, "This is heat glazed. This used to be rock." She looked up at Bishop. "This whole surface was flash melted at some point." Bishop said, "By what?" Halo said nothing. Torque pointed downslope into what to the naked eye was shadow. There. His voice had that edge of relief you get when you finally spot something physical to hold on to. I followed his finger. The "there" was wrong. Imagine a hatch. Imagine old naval steel. Riveted, scarred, brushed with deck paint 1,000 times and then sanded back to raw by salt and boots and weather. Now, bury that hatch horizontal in high desert basalt that has never seen salt water. Bolt Cold War submarine hardware into Nevada rock like you grafted a whale rib into a horse. That's what it looked like. A circular plate, thick, pitted, weld beads ugly and hand-done, not factory. The metal sweated condensation even though the night air was near freezing. Steam curled and vanished an inch above it like breath on glass. That condensation smelled metallic and sour. Hot coin roll, old battery terminals. It prickled at the back of my throat. There were scorch marks around the plate. The scorch pattern bled out in an uneven ring. You know how heat should plume evenly? This didn't. It crawled in tendrils. The blackened rock had glossy drips like plastic that had melted and then frozen mid-drip, only this was stone. The drips ran uphill in a few places. We hadn't opened it yet, and already physics wasn't being respected. There were marks on the metal. Not stamped serials, not English, not Cyrillic. Lines, curves, repeating loops. They had the rhythm of written language, but nothing my eyes wanted to grab. Quire leaned in with his filtered tablet. He angled the red light low to not spill. He snapped stills. His lips moved like he was subvocalizing. Then he swallowed and whispered, "That's not any alphabet I know. It's not script. It's like circuit traces pretending to be script." The hatch exhaled. Warm air pushed up through seams we hadn't cracked yet. The air coming up smelled like hot dust, like cement sawdust after a cut, and under that, something sweet rotten like meat left in a warm car. My eyes watered. Halo pulled her balaclava up over her nose. Bishop planted his palm on the metal. He hissed and yanked it back. "It's hot," he said. "Too hot." Halo flicked her wrist and stuck an IR temp strip to the hatch. The strip went black, then white, then black again like it couldn't decide what reading to give. Halo said, "It's cycling. It's on a pulse." This was supposed to be an abandoned training cache. Training caches don't breathe. Bishop looked at Chappell. "ROE?" His tone said, "Tell me now if I'm about to open something alive." Chappell said, "Breach and assess. Record only. No live uplink." Bishop stared. "You said no indigenous presence." Chappell said, "You will not answer if it talks." That was the second time he said it. We set a perimeter. Bishop put Torque on overwatch with his sidearm and the comms sled. He put Quire on his right hip for rapid interpretation. Halo took left with the Canberra wand dead around her neck. I was rear offset, angle on Chappell, because Chappell didn't carry like someone who would not panic. Bishop pulled a compact hydraulic spreader from his pack. No det cord, no bang. Quiet open. He slid the jaws against a seam in the hatch and started to pump. That was when the sparks died wrong. He hadn't even forced the metal yet. Just friction. Steel on steel. Tiny sparks spit from contact. They popped, flashed, hung in the air like fireflies, and then they didn't fall. They bent in a shallow curve and vanished into the hatch surface like they'd been magnet-dragged sideways. Gravity didn't win. The light got drunk and slid down. Bishop froze. Everyone saw it. Physics had just been told to sit down. Nobody said go. Bishop still went. He pumped the spreader and the hatch screamed like wet rebar tearing free of concrete. The night air rushed down past us like we'd just cracked open a pressure seal. Something under that door woke up. The hatch did not swing like a normal hatch. It didn't hinge. It relaxed. Metal that should have been rigid flexed inward, like muscle unclenching. The seal broke with a sucking sound. A ribbon of warm vapor rolled out across our boots, hugged the ground, and bled downslope instead of up. Warm air should rise. This air crawled like oil. The smell coming up hit hard. Hot concrete slurry. Burned copper. Old meat. My tongue went numb at the tip. My eyes watered and kept watering like they were trying to wash something out that wouldn't leave. The vapor had weight. You could feel it on your shins like a cat rubbing past. Halo gagged behind her balaclava. "There's ammonia in that," she whispered. "There's amine. That's not decay. That's coolant." Her voice was thin. Fear under lab cadence. Bishop locked the spreader. He clipped a line, hooked a carabiner through a welded loop on the hatch edge, and leaned his weight. The plate gave. It didn't lift. It flowed, like thick rubber under a heat lamp. Then it was open enough to show black. Not black like dark. Black like depth that didn't return light. The beam from Bishop's rifle light hit it and did something I still don't like remembering. The light went in. It didn't bounce back. It just ended. No cone, no dust motes, no halo on the far wall, like he'd pointed into a mouth. Bishop said, "We're stacked." His voice was steady from the throat out and shaking under it. We clipped in. Torque anchored the belay line to the truck via the comm sled, and a ground stake he hammered into basalt. The stake shouldn't have gone in. Basalt's too hard. It slid in like rebar into wet dirt. Torque stared at the hole like it had insulted him. Bishop dropped a chemstick. This was habit, almost muscle memory. Pop, shake, toss. The stick glowed dull, green in his glove. He let it fall through the opening. We waited to hear plastic hit concrete. We didn't. The chemstick fell and kept falling. The green faded until it was the size of a pepper seed, then dust, then gone. No clatter, no echo. Just swallowed. Halo whispered, "Depth is more than 30 meters." Bishop said, "Rope is 50. We're fine." Halo whispered, "No echo, Bishop." Bishop said again, like a prayer this time, "We're fine." Torque tested comms. Check 1, check 2, local net. My throat mic hissed back in my ear. "Copy." Choir whispered, "Copy." Halo, "Copy." Bishop, "Copy." Chapel didn't answer. Chapel didn't wear our throat mics. He had his own line, bone conduct behind his ear. He tilted his head like someone was whispering inside his skull and said, "Maintain radio discipline. We are record only. No live broadcast. You acknowledge." Bishop didn't answer. He just spun his carabiner and started down. Last air before I dropped. Cold desert, sage, burnt dust. First air in the shaft, humid, stale, ionized. The taste you get standing too close to a live transformer. Penny and ozone and wet concrete. I could feel it sit heavy in my lungs. Warm on inhale. Too warm for subsurface Nevada rock. We repelled single file. Bishop first, then Halo, then Choir, then me, then Chapel, then Torque last. Managing our line, feeding slack. We went slow because the wall didn't feel like rock. My gloved palm slid over surface that had the temperature of human skin, and the texture of poured concrete cured 40 years and sanded smooth. I could feel seams under my palm in repeating intervals, like panel joints. The seams curved in arcs that did not match the circular hatch above. The geometry felt wrong under my hand. My inner ear hated it. I swallowed back bile. The only sound was gear creak, breath, distant low pulse like a generator buried deep under concrete. Every eighth beat, the pulse would stutter and skip like a heart with an arrhythmia. The vibration climbed my harness and sat in my molars. At maybe 20 meters, I saw the first mark. It wasn't paint. It wasn't carved. It was burned in. The panel under my glove carried a darkened line in a looped shape, no start or stop point. The burned section had bubbled at the edges, then cooled, then etched itself back flat like it wanted to self-heal. The geometry repeated down and left and right, same loop, same angles, same spacing. Looking straight at it made my eyes ache. My vision tried to drift off the edges like it couldn't stay centered. Every time I tried to track the loop, I'd lose count and feel pressure between my eyebrows. Quayre's voice floated up soft. "That is language," he breathed. "It's iterative. It's recursive. It's like an address." His voice shook. "It's also a lock," Halo said. "Why does it smell like hot coolant 30 meters under basalt?" Bishop said, "Because it's not. Basalt." He wasn't wrong. The shaft wasn't cut in rock. It was lined, skinned, retrofitted like pipe in a pipe. I could see old concrete under newer plating. The old layer had rebar scars and drill scores. The newer layer overlapped it in pedal plates. Those plates shimmered like bronze in our lights but felt like warm ceramic under my glove. At 30 meters, the shaft opened. When I say opened, I don't mean we dropped into a room. I mean the shaft wall peeled away around us like the throat of a flower, and we were suddenly hanging in a volume too wide to make sense inside that ridge. My light hit air. Air ate it. I saw Bishop 10 meters below me, boots braced on a lip, rifle up, profile cut in ghost green off his IR. Past him was black. "On deck," Bishop whispered. His voice felt swallowed in my earbud. "Ledge, hook left." I hit the ledge. My boots touched something that wasn't floor so much as a grown lip extruded from the shaft lining. The surface flexed a hair under my weight like cured rubber over concrete. I hated it. We unclipped one at a time. Torque stayed on the line, anchoring above, humming low under his breath. I could smell his sweat in the warm ion stink. We stood in a semicircle on that lip and panned lights. The space beyond us wasn't empty. It was full, but it didn't admit light back. The beams from our rifles made cones and dust right in front of us and then hit an edge in the air like glass. Past that edge, the beams bent, doubled, and disappeared into angles that hurt to follow with the eye. Imagine a hallway, but the hallway refuses to agree it's straight. Imagine a room, but every corner argues with the others about where 90 degrees lives. There was sound, faint, layered, like chanting looped backward under AM radio static. The hair on my arms stood up under my sleeves. The voices weren't voices. They were carrier tones, modulated, artificial, trying on cadence like clothes. Chappell whispered, "Do not engage, do not acknowledge." That was the third time he said it. Bishop took point. He stepped forward onto the surface beyond the lip. The floor rippled under his boot and then held like thick gel under a tarp. He shifted weight. It stabilized. He nodded. We moved. Every step forward the air got warmer, damp. I could feel condensation on my upper lip. I licked it. It tasted like copper and stale coolant. My tongue went slightly numb. I wiped my mouth with the back of my glove and it came away with a faint gray smear. We passed a wall section that reflected light. Not metal, not glass, polished stone. Deep brown, shot through with veins like old bronze wiring. There were panels set into that stone. Modern. No, not just modern. Ours. Off-the-shelf industrial rack-mount boxes, green LEDs, English labels. Coolant feed aft. Field integrity. Bridge anchor load. Someone had bolted American hardware into something that was not American, not recent, not natural. Halo hissed. Why is there a Century Mark Gen 3 coolant controller on a wall older than English? Bishop said, Quiet. Halo said, No, listen. That unit uses a civilian thread pitch on the intake ports. Look at the adapter plates. Somebody machined custom collars to marry a 3/4 standard to whatever that is. Look at the weld. That's hand TIG. That's recent. That's human recent. Her voice shook. She was looking at something she understood bolted to something none of us did. We went farther. The chanting static got clearer. The pulse in the floor under my boots synced up with it. 12 beats. Pause. 12 beats. Pause. I started counting without meaning to. 12, like a squad. We had crossed a threshold, and I could feel rules bending under my feet like soft metal. There's a point underground where you stop pretending you're in charge and you start acting like you're already property. That point hit around 15 meters past the ledge. The hallway, if that's even the right word, tightened, then widened, then flattened, then pitched down again in smooth curves. No seams, no joints, just continuous surface like poured material that cured alive. My rifle light kept trying to auto-adjust brightness like it was confused about distance. 1 second, it would dim like I was face up against a white wall. Next second, it would spike like it was throwing high beams across an airfield. The space in front of me did not change. My light thought it did. Torque whispered, I'm still pulling 5x5 on everyone and we're 30+ down. That's not possible. I don't have a repeater up. I don't have line of sight to sky. I'm still green across channels. His voice shook. We are not bouncing off anything I know. Radios say connected. Radios are lying. Radios are talking to something that isn't us. Cameras did worse. Halo had a helmet cam rigged to her shoulder, standard rugged microlens, full dark capability, flash storage. She tapped it every 10 steps to make sure the rec LED stayed on. It stayed on. I watched that red dot blink, solid, obedient. Then she glanced at her wrist repeater to check live feed integrity. Blank. No signal. Okay, she whispered. Fine. Record only. She flipped the cam to internal. Same red blink. She checked again 5 minutes later. The LED was still blinking. The wrist repeater showed 0 minutes captured, 0 frames, 0 kilobytes. The cam was seeing but not saving. Cameras watch. Cameras don't remember. I started tasting metal like I'd bit my lip even though I hadn't. The air hummed in my sinuses like a tuning fork. My vision had a faint halo at the edges. Not a migraine. Not low blood sugar. Something electromagnetic sitting on my optic nerve like a thumb. We hit our first body sign. Not a body. I need to be clear. We never saw a whole Ranger laid out clean. We saw sign. We saw proof of contact. We saw proof of fight. On the left wall, at about knee height, there, were 4 vertical gouges ripped into that bronze-brown material. The cuts were clean. Each groove was the width of a human finger in gloves, spread like a hand dragging. The grooves were full depth for maybe 8 inches, then went shallow, then stopped. The stop points had little crescent divots like fingernails had torn off inside the wall. Next to the gouges, half stuck in the wall like a fork jammed into cooling pudding, sat a ceramic plate from a ballistic carrier. Ranger issue. You know that sandpapery outer texture on sappy plates. You never forget it. This one had an edge blown off. The fracture line had bubbled and glassed like it had been cut with heat from inside. There were no scorch marks on the outside. The plate had the number 12 written on the corner in silver Sharpie. Silver Sharpie is a barracks thing. You mark gear fast during kit layout. You mark gear when you belong to a team. Halo reached out, then stopped herself. Bishop said, "No touch." Halo nodded. Her gloved hand was shaking. Choir whispered, "Listen." We all froze. Footsteps. Not ours. Above us? No. Below? No. Sideways through the wall like the hallway next to us kept going inside the same air. Slow, deliberate, weight-bearing. Heel, then toe. Human cadence. But off by a tiny fraction, like whoever was walking didn't fully understand flexion. The steps stopped right next to us, 1 meter through solid wall. Then, breathing. We heard someone breathe 10 inches from Halo's ear through material my hand couldn't dent with a punch. Halo whispered, "Team 2, identify." Her voice tried to sit in protocol, tried to sit in comfort. She wanted, "Ranger, Ranger, this is Halo. Call sign Halo, respond with last 2 of serial, tell me you're upright." What she got was wet air against her cheek through a wall. Something on the other side exhaled like it was tasting her. Chapel hissed, "Do not acknowledge." Halo locked up like a statue. Her eyes were wide behind her goggles. I could see my own rifle light reflected in her lens. Her throat moved. She swallowed. She did not speak. The footsteps resumed. They moved forward through the wall parallel to our path. Perfect pace with us for 3 steps. 4. 5. Then they drifted forward faster than walking speed, like someone gliding on a dolly. The cadence stretched, smoothed, stopped. The hallway bent again. The bend was wrong. The floor didn't bank like a curve. The floor stayed flat, but the walls rotated around us. It felt like gravity leaned 30 degrees left even though my inner ear said we were straight. Chapel stumbled. Bishop grabbed his collar and yanked him upright. We all breathed hard through cloth. The air tasted like hot dust off a server rack. Choir whispered, "This place is choosing axes as we move." I said, "Keep moving." My voice sounded small in my own ears. We passed another set of burned-in marks. This set had numbers, actual Arabic numerals, 08, E09, 10, 11, 12. Repeated, in a vertical stack like a directory. Under each number sat a symbol loop. The loops all shared bones, but drifted, like a name written in the same hand 5 times, each slightly different. Choir lifted his tablet with the red filter and started whispering into it. 12 repeated, 12 repeated, 12 repeated. His voice was shaking. It's indexing them. Halo said, "Where are the bodies?" No one answered. At about 50 meters forward, if forward even meant anything, we hit a vertical drop that wasn't on Torquay's sense of slope. 1 step we were walking. Next step there was nothing but dark and moving air in front of Bishop's boot. He stopped dead. My chest hit Halo's pack. Halo's shoulder slammed Choir. We pinballed quiet in the dark and caught balance by instinct. Bishop crouched and angled his light down. The shaft below didn't go straight. It corkscrewed, slow spiral. The inside edge of the spiral had ridges like vertebrae. The ridges pulsed faint orange under our light like banked coals. Torque whispered, "Signals bouncing. I'm hearing us from 5 seconds ago." He swallowed. "I'm hearing us keep talking after we stop." I strained my throat mic. For a second, I heard my own voice whisper, "I'm hearing us keep talking after we stop," in my own ear half a second late. The hairs on my arms lifted under my sleeves. Instruments noticed first. Bishop clipped in again. "We go," Chapel hissed. "We do not descend further without command authorization." Bishop didn't even look at him. "Your command," he said. "Authorize it." Chapel's jaw flexed. He said nothing. Bishop started down the spiral. The spiral walls were carved, not burned loops, carved, relief work, symbols, figures, geometry. Some of it looked almost human. A hand, a jawline, an eye socket. Then the edges bent too far, doubled back, split into tessellated hex lines that didn't resolve into anything you could hold in your head. My brain tried to make faces out of it and failed. Every time I caught a shape, it slid and left after-image nausea behind. I blinked hard, my stomach rolled. 30 steps down, we saw it. First entity glimpse, not a full view, not a reveal. Just a piece, like catching a knee and a piece of shoulder through a cracked door. Below us, on the next landing of the spiral, light bent around a shape. I don't have better phrasing. Light bent, it curved like heat haze, but sharp-edged. The outline was roughly human height plus maybe half a head. Shoulders too narrow. Arms too long. The limb nearest us hung wrong, like the joints were offset by 2 inches. Where a head should have been, there was a smear in the air like someone had dragged a wet brush across glass. It moved. When it moved, my depth perception collapsed. My eyes couldn't track distance to it. It stepped. Sound happened 1 beat later, like the audio and visual channels weren't synced right. Footstep. Then echo. Then presence. No shadow. The thing crossed the landing below us. Stopped. Tilted like it was angling ahead it didn't properly have. The air between us hummed like old fluorescent ballast. The smell coming off that landing was cold metal shavings and something sweet like antifreeze. Then, in Halo's voice, perfect down to the breath hitch, it whispered up the shaft. "Bishop, I can't feel my hands." Halo was 3 steps above me. Halo heard herself. Her breath hitched for real. She clapped a hand over her own mouth. Bishop's jaw flexed so hard I thought he'd crack a molar. He did not answer. The thing listened. Chapel whispered, so soft I almost missed it. Do not acknowledge. Do not answer it if it talks. The air pressure popped in my ears. The smear of a head turned away. The limb bent across physics stepped once, twice. It slid sideways into the wall and was gone like a fish cutting into dark water. We didn't breathe for 3 full beats. Then Bishop said, throat low, "We keep going." So we kept going. The chamber at the base of the spiral wasn't a room. Room implies corners. This space had none. Imagine standing inside the hollow of a turbine the size of a church. Only the blades are load-bearing ribs and each rib is a different century. Closest ribs, poured concrete, honeycombed, rebar chewed and bent back like pulled taffy. 1960s bunker work, scored with drill burns, stained with water rust. Layer grown over that, bronze-looking arcs, almost organic, ribbed like insect carapace, edges fused into the concrete like the 2 materials had been melted together under pressure. That layer hummed at a frequency you don't hear with ears so much as feel in your gums. Layer bolted over that, cable trays, conduit bundles, junction boxes, labeled in English. Real English. Thermal tape labels, black on yellow, field integrity coil B. Anchor mass coolant return. Bridge stability, do not isolate. All caps, human label maker font. Someone had gone around with a Brother P-Touch in hell and put OSHA stickers on an altar. In the center of the space sat the core. I don't have a better word than altar, but altar feels wrong because altars are for worship. This thing was for work. Picture a block of dull metal the color of dried blood and old penny. Chest high, maybe 4 meters long. Cables as thick as my forearm ran into it from ceiling and floor both, tensioned tight enough to sing if you plucked them. The block surface wasn't smooth. It had recessed channels cut in fractal loops. Those loops glowed from inside with a low red like banked coals. On the near face of the block someone, human because the font was ours, had bolted a brushed steel panel. The panel held a small industrial LCD, 3 thumb dials, and a row of toggle safeties with bent wire keepers. Above the screen, laser-etched, was a plate. The plate read Damascus Protocol. Not project, not program, protocol. Under that, smaller, font, field anchor, revision, 12, active. Halo exhaled like she'd been punched. "What is this?" she whispered. Bishop said, "Record." Halo lifted her dead camera out of reflex. The Recce LED blinked like it was working. I didn't believe it. The LCD on the panel showed data in rolling green text. English. Coolant loop A, stable. Field integrity, 88% nominal. Anchor mass load, 1212. Time, det backflow, sealed. The numbers updated in real time. Temperature, load, draw. The units next to the numbers made no sense. Some read KN, fine. Some read MSV, fine. Some read HRKG, which is not a thing. Chappell stepped forward like he was approaching a tabernacle. His hands were shaking, sweat beaded at his hairline. The air round the block was warmer, almost humid. I could smell hot metal and coolant sugar. The hum coming off the cables made my teeth itch. Halo whispered, "This is fission-grade load. You see the shielding collars? Somebody plumbed reactor coolant into this." She looked at Bishop. "We are in an unreported reactor space. If that's felony time, multiple agencies. If that's federal prison until you die. Do you understand what we're looking at?" Bishop said, "I understand. I see no fuel pool, and I see no shielding bulkhead, and I see something calling itself an anchor mass. Tell me what an anchor mass is." Halo shook her head. "Anchor mass isn't a reactor term. Anchor mass is— I don't know what anchor mass is." She pointed with a gloved finger at one cable. "But that line is moving serious heat, Bishop. We're 20 degrees too warm for desert subgrade, and we haven't hit sweat yet. This loop is dumping. This is live." Torque whispered, "I still have 5 by 5. I'm still green." His voice cracked. "And I am also getting an incoming handshake request on a frequency I don't have hardware for. It is asking for compliance statement." He swallowed. "It is asking for witness." My throat went dry. I said, "Say that again." Torque said, "It's saying, witness, compliance, acknowledge containment debt. It's not voice, it's packet, but I can hear it anyway. Instruments first, then human fear." Choir had drifted away from us toward the far side of the chamber where the bronze ribs met the concrete bones. He crouched next to a section where the old concrete bunker wall was still visible under the bronze growth. There was paint there. Actual spray paint. Olive drab base, white stencil over it. Faded, but still readable. I stepped closer and angled my light. The stencil read, "USACE, Sublevel Access, 1968, no unauthorized entry." Under that, newer hand paint, black marker, block letters, half rubbed off by palms. "Do not answer if it talks." Same phrase, decades apart. Same phrase. Choir whispered, "Ledger." His voice sounded small in that big hum. "This goes back," he swallowed. "This goes back before Rangers. This goes back to Corps of Engineers. Someone found this in the 60s and tried to build around it." His red filter tablet threw a soft glow against his cheek. Sweat stuck dust to his skin. He looked like a ghost lit by instrument light. I stepped up to the Damascus Protocol panel. I could feel warmth radiating off it on my face. Dry, electric warmth. I reached a gloved hand toward the toggle safeties. Bishop grabbed my wrist. His grip was iron. "Do not touch that," he said. "Do not touch anything on that panel until someone smarter than us tells us what blows if we flip a wrong switch." Chappell said, too fast, "Nothing blows, nothing breaches, nothing comes out if we maintain load." We all turned on him. Chappell had gone pale. Sweat ran down his temple. His pupils were big. Protocol is stable while anchor mass is fed. Anchor mass maintains field. Field maintains boundary. Boundary maintains containment. Containment maintains debt. That's all this is. Halo stared at him. "That's all this is." Her voice went flat. "You knew?" Chappell licked dry lips. "Need to know." Bishop stepped in close. "We are knees deep in a felony reactor under U.S. soil, standing next to an unlogged device married into something that isn't ours, next to a panel that says Damascus Protocol like it wants a patent, and you're feeding us PowerPoint adjectives. You will define containment, debt, and anchor mass in the next sentence, or I am calling this abort and we are climbing out." Chapel opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. When he spoke, his voice had the cadence of someone reciting a brief he was told to memorize and not internalize. Containment is the stable holding of an incursion volume. Anchor mass is the tuned mass that pins that volume in local spacetime. Det is the differential of displaced hours expressed as biological tithe. Field integrity must remain above 80%, or breach cascade will initiate. Breach cascade cannot be re-established remotely. Witness is required on-site. Witness confirms compliance. Compliance feeds anchor. The chamber hummed around us like a throat. The cables vibrated under tension. I could hear faint fluid rush inside them like blood in a stethoscope. Halo whispered, "Biological tithe." Her eyes were wide. "You said biological." Chapel didn't answer. Bishop's jaw flexed. "Where are my 12 Rangers?" he said. Chapel's pupils flicked toward the Damascus Protocol panel. The LCD rolled. "Anchor mass load, 12 to 12. Nobody spoke. The humming under my boots hit a phase that made my vision shimmer at the edges. My tongue tasted like pennies and sugar. The air smelled like warm coolant and old dust in a server room that hasn't been vacuumed in a year. My palms were slick inside my gloves. Choir whispered, "Ledger, it's counting them." Chapel whispered, "Anchor mass is fed. That's why field integrity is nominal. That's why we have time." Bishop took one step into Chapel's space. Their chests almost touched. "You fed my people into a reactor to hold a door shut," he said. Chapel whispered, "We didn't feed them. The system accepted them." That sentence sat in the air like a live wire. Halo gagged. She turned her head and dry heaved into her balaclava. When she looked back up, her eyes were wet and furious. "You told us radiological accountability," she choked. "You told us source integrity. You fed humans into a dimensional anchor and you called it source integrity." Chapel shook his head hard. "Not fed. Accepted. There's a distinction in the brief. The mass has to be voluntary or the field degrades." They walked in. Halo stared. Why would 12 trained Rangers walk into that? Chapel swallowed. Because it told them it was hurt. The hum in the cables jumped. The LCD on the Damascus Protocol panel flickered. New line of text. White on black this time instead of green on black. Field integrity, 81% nominal, 79% warning. A red LED lit under a toggle safety we hadn't touched. Slow pulse, like a heartbeat. We all stared. The hum changed pitch. The ribs around us vibrated. Dust sifted down from the old concrete layer and hung in the air like ash. My throat tightened. I swallowed grit and tasted coolant sugar and copper. Torco whispered, I am now getting a handshake request in English. It says, anchor mass unsustainable at current load. Replacement mass required. Witness confirm compliance with Damascus Protocol. I looked at Bishop. Bishop looked at me. We were standing in a machine temple built out of Cold War concrete, insect bronze, and modern coolant loops wired into a block labeled Damascus Protocol, and the machine had just told us it was hungry. Not holy. Hungry. People like to imagine the first time you meet it, you get a movie speech, a demon monologue, a glowing figure. That's not how it went. The first contact in that chamber came from bad refraction and wrong math pretending to be a person. The air across from the Damascus Protocol block thickened. Not fog, not shimmer-off heat. Thicker, like clear gel pushed into air. Light from our rifles bent at the edge of that gel. The bent light made a silhouette that almost tracked human. Height close to halo. Shoulders narrow. Limbs long. The edges kept sliding. Like hard lines couldn't hold. The smell changed. Ozone. Ionized metal. Under it, faint sweet rot, like fruit left in a closed car. The gel flexed. Then sound hit my ears half a beat after the mouth shape moved. Witness, it said. The voice that came out of that shape wasn't one voice. It wasn't layered like bad audio either. It was 12 voices braided. Male, female, southern, flat Midwest, laughing, crying, shouting over wind. A whole squad layered into one throat. The consonants landed late. The vowels bent. Torque made a wet noise in his throat. I heard him whisper Hannah's name under his breath, not like a prayer, more like he was checking to see if his mouth still worked. The thing tilted. The air around its head smeared like someone had dragged a magnet through iron filings. Witness, it repeated. Compliance, boundary load at deficit. Anchor mass debt approaches breach. Chappell swallowed. He sounded like paper when he spoke. We acknowledge, he said. Bishop turned on him. No, he snapped. You do not answer. His voice cracked. You told us. You said do not acknowledge. You said do not answer if it talks. Chappell's jaw trembled. His eyes were huge. Sweat ran down his neck. That was for you, he whispered. Not for me. The gel shifted orientation. I could feel pressure against my eardrums like standing in front of a subwoofer. My vision swam for a second, edges haloed. I swallowed hard. My tongue tasted like copper and sugar and something bitter, like burned plastic. The voices braided again. Boundary stable at 81, it said. Boundary bleeds at 79. Breach cascade at 72. Breach cascade cannot be resealed without witness. Halo's breathing was ragged. What happens at breach cascade? She whispered. The gel turned toward her. When it did, the outline flickered. For a half-second, Halo was looking at Halo. Her own face, same braid, same brow scar, same sweat, same eyes wide in fear, but her double's pupils were blown full black edge to edge. No iris, no white, just mirror dark. The double Halo's mouth opened and the squad braid voice came out. Spill, it said. Bind. Consume. Surface. The mouth smiled. Too wide. Wrong hinge. Too many teeth. But I only saw that for a sliver before the image snapped back to the gel silhouette. Debt unpaid spills, the voices said. Boundary opens. Uncontained volume expresses. Surface accepts. My stomach lurched. Plain, I said. My voice sounded small. Say it plain. The thing tilted toward me. The air around my skull vibrated like bees were inside my sinus cavities. Door opens both ways, it said. You call it breach. We call it feed. Halo whispered. Nuclear anchor. Reactor coolant. Biological tithe. You're using heat to weld a hole in place. Her voice shook. You're holding a door shut with people. The gel paused, almost like breathing. Anchor mass stabilizes, it said. Anchor mass contains time debt. Time debt prevents spread. Spread is undesired by boundary partners and host region supervisors. Bishop's jaw flexed. Host region supervisors, he said. That's us. The GL's outline flickered again. This time when it flickered, it wore Bishop's face. Same stubble, same broken nose, same scar on his chin. Its Bishop face smiled, but it was wrong in a way I can still feel in my spine. Too smooth, too practiced, like an AI render of a human smile. The squad braid voice said, through Bishop's stolen mouth, Supervisor, witness, compliance. Bishop swore under his breath. Stop wearing my face, he said, voice low. The gel tilted. The fake smile dropped. The outline blurred, then settled back into the almost human smear. Then the offer came. Transactional. Clinical. Not mystical. A contract draft in a server room that smelled like coolant and hot dust. Anchor mass load unsustainable at current ratio, it said. Current anchor mass aging. Current anchor mass weakening. 12 units cannot maintain boundary for agreed interval. Replacement mass required. Witness confirm replacement. Halo shook her head. Replacement mass, she whispered. No. The gel pulsed once. Option A, it said. Submit. Become anchor mass. Join boundary, boundary holds, surface remains sealed, time debt absorbed by voluntarily bonded units. Voluntary bonding preserves cognitive continuity in sealed state. Cognitive continuity receives memory honor. Honor is recorded. Honor is kept. Halo whispered, "You're saying they stay awake." The gel pulsed again. Option B, it said. Refuse. Withdraw. Surface departs containment zone. No voluntary replacement mass bonded. Boundary loses load. Boundary bleeds. Breach cascade initiates. Cascade expresses. Surface cost distributed across nearest biological field at random until new anchor mass quota met. Quota will be met. Chapel's breathing had gone shallow and fast. "They told us that in the brief," he whispered. "They said containment debt is always paid. Only question is who pays it." Halo stared at him. "You knew this was a choice." Her voice was shaking with fury. "You brought us here as feedstock." Chapel shook his head so hard spit flew. "We brought Bishop," he whispered. "We brought Bishop's team. Rangers. They're trained for this." Bishop looked like someone had put a round through his spine. "No," he said. "Quiet. Flat. We are not trained for this. There is no block of instruction back home for become reactor ballast, so the hole in reality stays stitched." The gel tilted at Bishop. "Voluntary bonding preserves cognitive continuity," it repeated. The squad braid voice softened. It almost sounded kind. "You will not feel pain after boundary engagement. You will experience delay. Pause. Rest. You will become anchor. Your time debt will feed the seal. Your memory will remain in honor registry. You will not be forgotten." Bishop bared his teeth. "You eat us to keep your door shut," he said. "That's the plain. Say that plain." The gel paused. The air hummed. The wrong smell sweetened. Then the braid voices said, "Yes." The chamber vibrated. The Damascus Protocol panel beeped. New text rolled. "Field integrity, 79% warning. Anchor mass load, 12 to 12, degrading." A new line popped red. "Replacement mass required in Worogo, Watt 1237. Torque whispered, "It just started a countdown." My throat went dry. 12 minutes, I said. Chapel whispered, "It's faster than the brief." His face had gone gray. "They said we'd have an hour." Halo laughed. It wasn't humor. It was air leaving a cracked pipe. "Brief was wrong," she said. I thought of Hena. 34 weeks. The rattle in the vent. The ring in my pocket I hadn't given her yet. In that moment, the air in that machine temple felt like it had weight. Not gravity. Obligation. The gel turned toward me like it had heard that thought. Maybe it had. I don't know. The outline flickered. For half a heartbeat, the shape wore Hana's mouth. Her mouth down to the chipped canine. Her mouth said in Hana's voice, "Perfect. You said you'd be back." And then the outline snapped back to blur. I almost stepped forward. Bishop's hand clamped on my shoulder so hard I saw white. The gel pulsed. "Witness," it said. "Supervisor, compliance." Bishop's voice was low. "No deal," he said. The gel held still. The hum in my bones climbed until my vision buzzed at the edges. Then the thing gave us the real cost. Not threat. Ledger sheet. "Option B," it repeated, calm. "Withdraw. Breach cascade initiates. Cascade will pursue nearest biological fields to balance time debt. We calculate nearest biological fields as 1 gestating unit at 34 weeks, female, Henderson sector. 1 elderly male hospice care, Reno sector. 1 minor dependent age 6, Fallon sector. Plus attached proximals in physical radius at time of boundary vent. Cost will be distributed across all listed until quota met." I couldn't breathe. Hana, 34 weeks. Henderson. Halo sucked air like she'd been underwater too long. "That's illegal," she whispered like law still mattered that far down. Bishop's jaw trembled. His eyes were wet and furious. "Why those?" he said. "Why them?" The gel pulsed. "Because you brought their signatures in with you," it said. "Because you tethered them when you walked through boundary. Because you made them part of the field." The hum climbed. The countdown on the panel rolled under 11 minutes. The deal sat between us. Submit and become anchor, or walk and let the debt eat the people we loved. That was the choice. It didn't feel like a choice. We didn't get to vote. Bishop opened his mouth to answer. I don't know what he was going to say. I never will. The chamber lurched. Not shook. Lurched. Like someone had grabbed the whole space and yanked it 6 feet sideways and then dropped it back in a hurry. My stomach flipped. My knees went weak. Halo stumbled into the Damascus Protocol block and slammed her shoulder. Torque went down to one knee and grabbed the comm sled like it could anchor him to reality. The cables around us screamed. Actual scream. Metal on metal. High, sharp, animal. The panel's LCD flashed. Field integrity, 74% critical. Anchor, mass load, 12 to 12, collapsing. The countdown skipped. 11 minutes dropped to 3. The gel snapped from almost human to wrong. Edges shattered. Light bent and sprayed. Imagine a spider made of refraction. Every limb a smear of bent hallway. It stretched. It screamed. The scream didn't come through my ears. It came straight through my teeth. My jaw lit up like someone had drilled without anesthetic. Cascade, the braid voices said, and this time it wasn't calm. It was urgent. Cascade breach. Field integrity below agreed threshold. Witness hold containment. Hold. Bishop shouted, "What did you do?" Chapel was crying. "We didn't do anything," he gasped. "They're slipping. Anchor mass is dying on us." Something hit the chamber wall. Not from our side, from the other side of the boundary. The bronze ribs bowed inward like rubber under a hard shove. The concrete underlayer cracked. Hairline fractures spidered out in every direction. The hum in the air went from annoying to unbearable. My vision doubled. The air smelled like burned transformer oil and hot pennies. I swallowed and tasted blood. The crack in the rib didn't bleed light. It bled space. I watched a line in reality peel back like torn mylar. Behind it was not dark. Behind it was more room, bigger than the size of the crack. Wrong parallax. I could see angles that didn't line up with the chamber we were in, far away and too close at the same time. A hallway with a floor that went vertical. A ceiling that bent down like a tongue. Pulsing orange shapes like banked coals laid out in a grid that kept trying to redraw itself. Bishop raised his rifle and fired. The report was deafening in the chamber. He put 3 rounds into the crack by instinct. Good group. Tight. Measured. Years of muscle memory. The bullets went in. I saw the muzzle flash. I saw brass kick. I heard the bang. I watched the rounds leave the barrel and then turn into gray flowers mid-air. Tiny bursts of ash and petal that drifted like burned paper. Harmless. Soft. They crumbled and fell to the floor at our boots like dead moth wings. Halo whispered, "We can't shoot breach." The bronze rib tore. It didn't burst like shrapnel. It unzipped. The tear opened with wet sound. The air temperature jumped. My exposed skin flashed hot like I'd opened an oven. The smell coming through the tear hit like a wall. Not rot, not sewage, wet mineral, metallic salt, underground river, and hot coin. My throat closed. I gagged. Something pushed through. Not a limb. Limbs I can describe. This was a fold. Like a length of hallway had been rolled up like a fire hose and shoved partway into our world. It bent against itself in angles that made my eyes sting. Surfaces met surfaces that shouldn't meet. Corners interlocked with planes that shouldn't have corners. The edges flexed like muscle. The surfaces pulsed like breath. Torque screamed. I spun. There were 2 Torques. One Torque was on his knees next to the comm sled, mouth wide, eyes huge, yelling wordless panic. The other, Torque, same face, same sweat pattern, same scar lines on the wrists, was 5 feet to his left, already standing, already turning to run. The running Torque had no shadow. His boots weren't landing right. His footfalls hit half a beat late and echoed ahead of him, like he was outrunning his own sound. Halo shouted, "Torque, freeze!" Both Torques froze. Both Torques turned to look at her. Both sets of eyes blown wide. The standing Torque's pupils were wrong. Not round. Slit, like vertical cat eyes, just for a blink. Then normal again. He smiled. The smile was Halo's, copied and pasted onto Torque's face. "We'll be fine," he said in Halo's voice. Bishop fired again. This time he didn't aim at the breach. He aimed at standing Torque. The rifle cracked. The muzzle flash lit the chamber like a strobe. The round left the barrel and went 90 degrees in the air like it hit a gravity well and curved into the Damascus Protocol block. It hit the brushed steel panel, sparked, and burned a black crescent in the corner under the etched nameplate. The LCD flashed and spat nonsense characters for half a second before stabilizing. "Field integrity, 71% cascade." The gel thing screamed again. "Hold," it said. "Hold witness, hold, hold, hold." The fold coming through the breach flexed and snapped at us like a muscle spasm. The air pressure punched my chest. I stumbled back. My shoulder hit warm cable. I felt current through my armor like a live fence. My fingers went numb. My tongue tasted ion burn. Then everything started phasing. Bishop was in front of me. Then he was 2 feet to my left without moving. Then he was both, like a double exposure. I blinked and saw two bishops arguing with each other in silence, mouths moving, hands signaling. One bishop's sleeve was torn and bleeding. The other bishop's sleeve was clean. The clean-sleeved bishop flickered and was gone. The bleeding bishop remained, panting. Halo's cam LED blinked red. 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 Then blue. Then yellow. Then it projected a thin cone of light in the air like a holo. The cone showed us ourselves from 6 seconds ago, still standing calm, still listening to the gel talk. We were ghosts in our own air. Choir screamed. I turned and saw why. Choir's left hand was gone at the wrist. Not ripped, not bleeding. Sealed. Smooth skin like scar tissue years old. His sleeve dangled empty. He stared at the stump. He opened his mouth and made this high broken sound. Not pain, confusion. "I didn't lose it," he gasped. "It's still there. I can feel it. I can feel my hand. It's just—" He held up the sealed stump and flexed phantom fingers. The sealed skin rippled like something under it was trying to move. Chappell was on his back on the floor, clutching his throat. He wasn't choking. He was talking. Fast. Too fast. Streams of words. Different languages. I caught Farsi, then Russian, then something that sounded like underwater modem noise. His voice wasn't his. It pulsed in radio cadence. Bursts. Squawks. He was broadcasting with his mouth like a broken SATCOM set. The gel shape flickered between us and the breach like a glitching guardian angel. Every time the breach fold lunged, the gel flared brighter. The braid voices shouted, "Hold!" and the fold recoiled like it had been burned. The countdown on the panel rolled under 1 minute, 58 seconds, 57. The numbers ticked faster than real time. Bishop grabbed my vest and slammed me against the Damascus Protocol block. His face was 10 inches from mine. His eyes were bloodshot. "Ledger," he said, "listen to me. We are not winning this. We are not going to reason with that. We are not going to shoot that. We are not going to negotiate down the rate. We are going to run." My mouth was dry. "They said breach follows us," I said. "They said debt spills." Bishop's jaw flexed. "We are going to run," he said again. "And we are going to lie about what happened so they can't track who loved who. Do you understand me?" My stomach dropped. He shook me once, hard. "Do you understand me?" I nodded. "Good," he said. He turned, grabbed Halo by the strap, yanked her up. "Halo, we're leaving." Halo stared at the panel. "Field integrity," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "If we leave, that goes to 0. If it goes to 0, then it was already 0, Bishop snapped. "Move." Torque was sobbing, real Torque, on his knees by the comms sled. The not Torque had vanished or merged with a wall or never existed in the first place. Bishop hauled Torque up by the harness. "Pack it," he barked. "Now." Torque's hands moved on autopilot. He collapsed antenna masts, ripped cables free, slammed panels shut. His fingers shook so hard he almost dropped the sled handles. The sled hummed under his grip like a live animal. The breech fold flexed again. A sliver of knot space snapped across the floor like a whip. It grazed Chapel's boot. His whole leg from shin down vanished. No blood. Smooth seal. He screamed in multiple languages at once, voice modulating like a radio scanning bands. "Go!" Bishop yelled. We ran. We ran through a chamber that was in the process of coming apart in angles. We ran past ribs that were failing and singing like tortured metal. We ran past a block labeled Damascus Protocol that was throwing red text faster than I could read. We ran into a hallway that wasn't in the same place we'd left it. The hallway bent wrong. The floor tilted. Gravity lied. At one point I was running on a wall, and I knew I was running on a wall because Halo's braid was hanging sideways in my peripheral, and Torque's sled was skidding at a 45-degree angle and still somehow staying under him like it had its own gravity well. My stomach tried to empty. Nothing came up but copper spit. The lights in my peripheral strobed. Not our rifle lights. Other light. Light like bioluminescent plankton, pulsing in patterns that made my eyes water. 12 beats. Pause. 12 beats. Pause. The air hummed those beats straight into my bones. We hit the spiral. We climbed like animals. Bishop led with one arm because his left hand was shaking so hard he couldn't trust it on the rope. Halo clipped in and scuttled like she'd been born vertical. Torque dragged the comm sled up the curve of the spiral like a man dragging his child out of a burning car. Choir climbed one-handed, teeth bared, stump tucked to his chest. Chapel sobbed and begged God in 4 languages, and modem burst. I looked back once. Do not look back. I looked anyway. The chamber below us was folding in on itself like a closing fist. The bronze ribs flexed and popped like tendons. The breech fold pushed through like tongue through cracked teeth. The gel thing threw itself against the breech, flared white-hot like arc light, screamed, "Hold, witness, hold," and shattered. I watched it come apart into 12 separate figures for half a second. 12 human silhouettes. 12 rangers. All burned white like negatives. All screaming. All reaching. Then the light blew out like a breaker tripped. The panel died. The hum cut. The countdown hit 0. The world above us shifted like a gear slipping a tooth. One blink, we were mid-spiral, climbing through hot, humming air that tasted like pennies and coolant. Next blink, we were on our backs in cold sage with stars overhead. I don't remember the transition. My brain does not have frames for it. My muscles do. My muscles remember impact. My ribs remember hitting basalt. My palms remember grit and oil sand grinding into glove fabric. My nose remembers sage and brake dust rush back in like a slap. I sucked cold desert air and coughed until my throat burned. The taste of ion and coolant and hot metal peeled off my tongue in layers. The night above us was too quiet. No hum, no chant, no 12-beat pulse. The only sound was wind skimming the basin and Torque dry heaving into the dust. I rolled to my side. Head count, Bishop, Halo, Torque, Choir, Chapel, me, 6. We had gone in 7. We had come out 6. I looked around for the missing body. There wasn't one. There was just empty sage and disturbed dust where someone heavy had hit and then not existed. The belay line we'd clipped to the truck had slack in it like it had been cut and then retied by nobody. The hatch behind us was closed, sealed, no seam. Just black rock with a faint circular stain like old oil. Torque sobbed. "I can't hear anything," he gasped. His voice was raw. "I can't hear anything on comms. I lost green. I lost link. It's gone. It's gone." He clutched the comm sled like it was a life raft. Halo was on her knees, hands on the ground, breathing like she'd sprinted a mile. "We're alive," she said, like she was trying to convince herself. "We're alive. We're alive." Quire sat upright and stared at his arm. The stump at his wrist was smooth, sealed, pale. No blood, no scab, no scar, tissue shine. It looked like he'd been born that way. He flexed phantom fingers. The sealed skin rippled like something under it moved in answer. His face was white and tight. "I can still feel my hand," he whispered. "It's holding something." His voice shook. "It's holding something hot." Chapel lay on his back and stared at the sky. His mouth worked. His throat moved. No sound came out. His eyes were wide. Tears ran into his hair. I leaned over him. "Chapel," I said, "talk to me." Chapel turned his head slow. His eyes locked on mine. When he opened his mouth, no human sound came out. A clean, perfect SATCOM burst tone chirped from his throat. Then another. Then another. Digital handshake. Encrypted packet. My skin crawled. I pulled back. Bishop staggered to his feet like a man walking off a roadside IED. He scanned the basin. IR up, rifle up. His left eye was red like a vessel had blown. His right hand shook. His left hand didn't. He looked at me. His voice was wrecked. "Ledger," he said, "check yourself." I patted down on reflex. Head, shoulders, chest armor, sidearm, thighs, knees, ankles. Everything hurt, but pain meant still attached. I slid my hand into my right cargo pocket. The ring wasn't there. My stomach dropped straight through me. I tore the pocket inside out like a junkie looking for a last pill. Nothing. Fabric. Grit. Empty. I had checked that pocket a dozen times in the truck. I had felt the circle of metal against my thigh. It was gone. My throat closed. I swallowed hard and tasted sage and blood. Torque was still shaking. He whispered, "I can't hear anything," over and over like a loop. Halo crawled to him and grabbed his face in both hands. "Breathe," she said. "Breathe, Torque. In, out, in, out." Torque stared at her. His pupils were huge. He nodded in little jerks. He tried. His breath hitched and rattled. Bishop scanned again. "Quire," he said. "How long were we down?" Quire blinked like he'd just come back from a long way off. He looked up at the sky. He said nothing for a beat. Then he whispered, "Moon moved." His voice shook. "Ledger, moon moved too far. We were down more than 20 minutes. I checked my watch. My watch said 04:23. We had gone down at 23:10. That's 5 hours. We were not 5 hours older. My stomach clenched. Time didn't line up. My head hurt. Instruments notice first. Chapel gagged. His whole body convulsed like he was dry heaving. Then he turned his head and vomited a puddle of bright, metallic-looking gel into the dust. The gel hissed on the cold ground like hot solder dropped in snow. Steam curled up. The air smelled like burnt circuit board and antifreeze. Chapel whimpered and clutched his throat. When he tried to speak again, a garbled modem handshake spilled out of his mouth, then a single word landed clean in English, monotone and cold. "Witness." Halo recoiled. "Jesus," she whispered. Bishop crouched over Chapel and grabbed his collar. "You are not saying one word of this to anyone but me from here forward. You understand me?" Chapel nodded, eyes huge, tears still running. Another SATCOM burst, chirped out of his throat like his body didn't care what his brain agreed to. We had to move. We all knew it without talking about it. The basin felt wrong now. The air felt thinner than desert air should. The sage smell was still there, but under it something sweet had followed us up. Coolant sugar, ion tang, A faint hum under the wind like a transformer coil still spinning below our boots. I stood. My knees almost gave. Bishop grabbed my elbow and steadied me. His grip shook. "Ledger," he said. "Look at me." I looked. Bishop's eyes weren't the same color anymore. They had been brown up top. I remembered that. Deep, dark. Ranger eyes. Now the irises had a ring of pale metallic gray around the pupil, like someone had inlaid mercury under the cornea. The ring pulsed faint, matching that 12-beat cadence I could still feel in my molars. I flinched. Bishop saw it. His mouth twitched. "Yeah," he said, "I know." Halo crawled closer and stared. "Can you see?" she whispered. Bishop snorted. "Too much," he said. "I can see your heat bloom through your face wrap, and I can see radio like dust motes. I don't like it." Halo sat back on her heels. Her face had gone slack. "They rewired you," she whispered. Bishop's jaw flexed. "They rewired all of us," he said. "Question is, how loud?" Question was how traceable. Torque choked on a laugh that wasn't a laugh. "We're not going to a hospital," he said. "You know that, right? We walk into Banner with Choir's missing hand sealed like a doll and Chapel talking in SATCOM and Bishop with shine eyes, and we don't walk back out." "Correct," Bishop said. "We are not going to a hospital." He pointed at me. "Ledger, your retain. Your job is post-contact narrative. You're going to build the lie. You're going to sell the lie. You're going to protect Hana and every other tether they named by lying so hard and so clean that whatever tracks us can't correlate targets. You understand?" I swallowed. My mouth tasted like dust and old pennies. "Yes," I said. "You're going to say," Bishop said, voice low, controlled, lethal, "we found nothing but an old DOE test shaft. You're going to say it was fused in the 90s. You're going to say there were no bodies, no gear, no breach. You're going to say the missing Rangers are presumed KIA due to structural collapse underground. You're going to name subsidence. You're going to name void. You're going to say ground ate them. You're going to say you saw no unauthorized radiological source. You're going to say all instruments read nominal. You're going to say we aborted due to unsafe atmosphere. That's the story." Halo stared at him. "And when they ask why Choir lost a hand in a collapsed DOE shaft," she whispered, voice shaking. Bishop didn't blink. "Saw," he said. "Cable, industrial, whip damage, tourniquet, cauterize, field medic. He lives." He pointed at Chapel. "Chapel caught a throat full of rebar dust, ripped his vocal cords. He'll heal." He pointed at his own eyes. "Flash burn, arc flash. No permanent damage." Halo let out that cracked laugh again, the one that wasn't humor. "Flash burn doesn't put mercury halos in your eyes, Bishop." Bishop bared his teeth. "They don't know that," he said. "We're going to act like they don't know anything. We're going to tell the lie and we're going to stick to it until we die. Because if we tell them the truth, they'll feed us back into that thing and call it national security." Wind slid across the basin. Cold, dry, real. For a second I let it wash the coolant taste off my tongue. Then I remembered what the gel thing had said. "You tethered them when you walked through boundary." My stomach twisted. Hana. 34 weeks. Henderson. I bent over and spat bile into the sage. When I straightened, Bishop was watching me. His mercury ring eyes pulsed faint. "You understand what happens if you talk sloppy," he said. "You understand who pays." "Yes," I said. My voice was rough. "Yes." Bishop nodded once. "Good," he said, "because now we go report in." My stomach dropped cold. "We're reporting in," I said. Bishop's mouth twisted. "We don't have a choice," he said. "We're already burned. They already know. You think Chapel didn't uplink halfway down that hole? You think that SATCOM and his throat's off? We're not hiding this. We're just trying to shape the first draft so Hana doesn't pay my bill." Chapel made another wet modem burble out of his mouth, then whispered in a voice that wasn't quite his and wasn't quite machine. "Witness logged. Torque shivered. We limped back to the trucks like survivors out of a crash site. Sage cracked under our boots. The sky over Mountain Warfield looked wrong. Stars felt slightly out of place, like someone had shifted the dome half a degree while we were underground. The night air smelled like desert again, clean and dry and freezing at the edges. Under it, faint, like a memory you can't quite grab, there was still that coolant sugar tang. We loaded up in silence. When Torque turned the key, the truck started on the first try like nothing had happened at all. Range control lit us up with floods the second we cleared the outer cattle gate. Not normal floods. Too bright, too white, hospital light. My pupils slammed down. Bishop's didn't. Bishop hissed and clapped a hand over his new eyes like a man with a migraine. We rolled into the same motor pool cage we'd staged in. Same solvent stink. Same brake dust taste in the air. The clocks on the wall still had their second hands shaking and not moving. Time. On. Base hadn't caught up. There were new people waiting. Not uniforms, suits, gray. Off the rack good, not tailored. Clean shoes with desert dust tamped into the treads by hand so they'd pass a glance. No name badges, no rank. One woman, two men. Behind them, two med techs in scrubs with no hospital logo and no rank tape. Scrubs were dark gray. Not blue, not green. Neutral, erase me, gray. The woman in gray stepped forward. She had a tablet in her left hand and a pen in her right. Not digital stylus. Pen, ink, paper folder tucked under her arm. She smelled like hotel air and mint. No desert on her except the fake dust on her shoes. Casualty report, she said. No hello, no names, no you okay? Straight to numbers. How many off-schedule assets recovered? Bishop stared at her through slitted eyes. None, he said. Her face didn't change. Understood, she said, like she'd expected that. How many new off-schedule assets generated? Bishop's jaw flexed. None, he said. Her eyes flicked down Bishop's body, across Halo's shaking hands, across Choir's sealed stump, across Chapel's raw throat, across my face. She didn't linger on Bishop's eyes. She didn't flinch at Choir's missing hand. She clocked it, logged it, moved on. Understood, she said again. Her tone didn't say she believed him. Her tone said she'd write whatever she was told to write. Medical now, one of the gray suit men said. He jerked his chin at the scrubs. Vitals, scan, patch. No verbal until post-incident statement captured. Recorders rolling. Halo stiffened. We're not cleared for medical eval, she said. Her voice shook with fatigue and anger. You want a vitals check? Fine. You do not draw blood. You do not take samples. You do not swab. You do not collect anything off my team without chain of custody paperwork and signatures. The woman in gray didn't look at Halo when she answered Halo. She kept looking at Bishop. This female is not cleared to refuse, she said. Bishop said, she is now. The air in the motor pool tightened. I could smell ozone again. Torque flinched like he was waiting for someone to strike him. Choir held his sealed stump against his chest like a child holding a broken toy. Chapel stood with his back against the wall, shaking, sweat soaking his collar. Little chirps of encrypted packet noise kept slipping out of his mouth against his will. He looked like he wanted to be sick again. The woman in gray made a note. Acknowledged, she said. No argument, no escalation. She flipped a page in her folder and clicked her pen. We will proceed with visual-only medical assessment and non-invasive scan to confirm you are not a vector for atmospheric breach. Stand in front of the light. Face forward, hands at sides. Do not speak unless prompted. Atmospheric breach, Halo whispered under her breath. Her throat worked. They have a name for it. Of course they did. The med techs rolled out a portable scanner on a collapsible frame. It looked like a cross between airport security and a dental X-ray arm. No markings. No manufacturer plate. Just matte gray composite and a leaded screen. One tech smelled like hand soap and latex. The other smelled like stale coffee and cinnamon gum. Normal smells, almost comforting. They scanned us one by one. The machine hummed a little too low. I could feel it in my bones and in the fillings in my molars. The hum made Bishop flinch and hiss. The machine made a faint chime each time it finished. The techs nodded. They didn't speak except to say, "Step left, step right, hold still, breathe." When they got to chapel, the machine whined, high, angry. The leaded screen flickered with static. One tech said, under his breath, "Jesus," before catching himself. The woman in gray didn't look up. She just made another note. No one asked Choir why his left hand was sealed like molded plastic. No one asked Chapel why his throat was throwing modem chirps instead of words. No one asked Bishop why his irises pulsed mercury in time with a hum only we could feel. That scared me more than questions would have. This wasn't shock. This was routine. They'd done this before. The woman in gray slid the pen behind her ear and met Bishop's eyes. "Statement," she said. "Start to stop. Commander first, then support, then attached specialist." She flicked her chin at me on attached specialist. "No deviations. We are live." Bishop's jaw flexed, his shoulders squared. He stood like he was back on a range line reciting safety rules for a nervous colonel. His voice came out flat, professional, dead. "Mission profile," he said. "Subsurface radiological integrity audit at Legacy DOE test site within closed training range. Weather stable. Approach by ground transport. No air support requested. We established perimeter at the marked entry point. We observed historical test shaft consistent with late 60s Corps of Engineers work and patch-welded naval steel. We noted subsidence risk and abnormal surface heat, indicative of buried hardware. We attempted controlled breach to verify no orphan source had migrated into groundwater. During breach, we experienced structural failure, gas release, and partial collapse." He didn't blink. His voice didn't shake. We attempted entry to confirm casualty status for previously off-schedule unit that had gone silent in the area. We determined subgrade space was unstable and not in compliance with current DOE containment standards. We observed legacy equipment married to modern coolant management hardware. We observed no live ordnance, no fissile material, and no unsecured radiological source at or near air interface. We observed evidence of catastrophic mechanical shear injury consistent with cable whip and panel collapse. We recovered no remains. We recovered no tags. We recovered no serializable U.S. property. We deemed the site non-survivable for trapped personnel. We aborted. The woman in gray wrote without looking at him. Ink on paper. Her pen made neat scratching sounds over the motor pool hum. Bishop kept going. "During egress, we experienced secondary collapse. Choir sustained traumatic amputation at left wrist due to falling structural member. Field dressing applied. Bleeding controlled. Chapel sustained inhalation injury due to rebar dust and caustic coolant aerosol. Vocal cords compromised. Airway patent. Ledger sustained contusions. Halo and torque, no significant physical trauma. We returned to base under our own power. We recommend site be sealed, flagged, and controlled as hazardous industrial waste environment pending DOE review and Corps of Engineers structural stabilization. We recommend no unprotected entry without heavy equipment, supplied air, and full chain of custody radiological team present. We recommend next of kin notifications proceed along KIA and training line, with emphasis on underground collapse and zero survivability." He stopped. The air in the motor pool felt thin. I could smell hot dust from the scanner, and under it, faint, the coolant sugar tang from below still clinging to our clothes. The woman in gray looked up for the first time. Her eyes were pale, almost colorless. She smiled, but it was paperwork polite, not kind. "Thank you," she said. She turned her head slightly. Support statements will match commander narrative, she said. No deviations, no embellishment, no atmospheric descriptors beyond dust and coolant aerosol, no subjective reports of sound, light, or anomalous geometry. You experienced an industrial subsidence event. You confirmed that, now for record. Halo's jaw clenched. Her eyes were wet. She swallowed. Confirmed, she said. Torque nodded fast. Confirmed, he said, voice shaking. Quire was shaking so hard his teeth knocked. He hugged his sealed stump against his chest like it might float him. Confirmed, he whispered. Chapel opened his mouth. A clean, perfect SATCOM burst chirped out. Then, in a flat monotone that wasn't his cadence, came one word. Confirmed. The woman in gray nodded like this was all normal. Good, she said. Medbay will observe you for 2 hours for liability optics. You will sign NDA reinforcement acknowledging Title 18 penalties. You will surrender all imagery devices and notes for chain of custody scrub. You will not discuss atmospheric conditions, geometric distortion, cognitive intrusion, or non-standard contact with any personnel not already present in this room. You will not mention the phrase Damascus Protocol outside this room. You will not write Damascus Protocol. You will not type Damascus Protocol. You will not think Damascus Protocol in proximity to any network-connected device. You will not say Damascus Protocol in your sleep if you can help it. Halo flinched. Bishop's jaw worked. My stomach turned ice. The woman in gray smiled that polite paperwork smile again. Congratulations, she said softly. You just prevented a breach cascade in Konus. Your families will be proud of your service. Bishop's face went hard. Our families will be told it was a training mishap, he said. Yes, she said. And that we lost men underground, he said. Yes, she said. And that nothing followed us out, he said. Her smile never moved. Yes, she said. The fluorescent hum over our heads buzzed a little too low, on a frequency only we seemed to hear. The clocks on the wall still hadn't ticked. I am not the first person to hear this story. I am not the first person to try to run it up a chain and get told to sit down. I am not even the first person to write Damascus Protocol in a notebook and circle it until the ink goes through the page. This is already doctrine. I can prove that without leaving this chair. I can prove it without leaving open sources. All you have to do is line up the noise. June 18, 1982. Falklands. British Special Operations go silent for 9 hours in a sector the public maps as scrub and rock. The unit is flagged SAS Detachment, Material Recovery. That is what the MOD still calls it. Material Recovery. The only 2 men who lived long enough to talk about it both described the same thing in different years to different interviewers. Thick heat underground in cold air, a hum you feel in your bones, and a door that was not a door. One of them says on tape, "We were told to witness. We were told compliance. We were told not to answer it if it talked." Witness. Compliance. That wording is not British. That's borrowed phrasing. It repeats. I pause and rub my eyes. The light in here is bad office LED. Too clean. Too white. You can taste the dust cooking on the ballast. The hum sits in the drywall. Winter, 1997. Murmansk Oblast. A Spetsnaz team attached to a Northern Fleet security element diverts from an anti-smuggling drill and never checks back to base. They were supposed to sweep a decommissioned Soviet early warning radar node. Concrete. Ice. Old wire. Instead, a 6-man follow team finds Scorch scoring in permafrost. Finds a naval-grade hatch in frozen tundra, welded by hand onto stone that should not be cuttable with field gear. Finds boot prints circling it in tight loops. 12 sets of prints. The last 12 steps on every track all point toward the hatch. No steps point away. The after-action report says, loosely translated, observed evidence of voluntary descent. Breach averted. Anchor debt honored. Anchor debt? They were already using that language in '97. Russia didn't invent that phrase, they pulled it from somewhere. November 2009. Western Arctic Line, USAF inspection flight doing a routine electronics audit along a dead dew line station up near the Alaska-Canada edge. The dew line hasn't been fully active in years. Everyone knows that. The Air Force still sends inspectors to clear environmental hazards. That's the cover line. I pulled the FOIA. The maintenance request that spun that flight doesn't mention PCB cleanup or buried barrel removal. It says, verify integrity of subgrade field coil and confirm boundary mass remains stable under polar drift. Field coil. Boundary mass. That is not NORAD vocabulary. That is Damascus vocabulary. That's anchor talk on U.S. soil 16 years before Mountain Warfield. The pilot transcript from that run is mostly boring. Mostly fuel checks. Mostly ice warnings. Until minute 43. Until, control, be advised we have thermal bloom at grid 6-7. Copy 6-7, not atmospheric, it's ground. Looks like a manhole cover lit from inside. Control tells them, do not engage, maintain altitude, do not answer if it talks. Control says it like you'd say, watch the crosswind. Routine. Rehearsed. No panic in the voice at all. I rub the bridge of my nose. I feel grit under my fingertips. That's how long I've been sitting with this. Long enough for dust to settle on my face and stay. April 2014. North Pacific SOSUS node off the Aleutians. Navy acoustic techs run hydrophones built to hear submarines creep. The array picks up something under the seabed. Not whale, not prop noise, pattern, 12-beat pulse, pause, 12-beat pulse, pause. The tech on duty flags it as possible drilling rig noise until the pulse starts up converting. He describes it as a voice that is not a voice coming through steel. He writes, content not linguistic, content conceptual, meaning presented as obligations, not sentences, terms repeated, witness, contain, debt, voluntary, compliant mass, cascade. He is reassigned inside a week. The log entry is refiled as seismic anomaly, glacial slip event. He later tells a friend in a bar in Bremerton that he had a nosebleed for 2 hours straight after that shift. He says his molars hummed until he thought they'd crack. He says he still can't sleep near transformers because he can taste metal on the air when they hum. He drinks. He won't talk on the record. He tells his friend, they told me if I ever heard that cadence again to walk away and not answer. That language again. Do not answer if it talks. Southwest Syria, 2017. A raid billed as a counter-proliferation seizure hits an ISIS-held industrial shell outside Al-Mayadin. The official line after the op is that it was a radiological snatch and grab to keep a dirty source from crossing borders. That's the press safe. I have a leaked sitrep from that night. The sitrep doesn't mention radiological anything. It mentions improvised boundary coils bolted into commercial reactor coolant loops feeding a non-declared mass core. It mentions field integrity at 74%. It mentions cascade risk in the red if we pull their volunteers out. Volunteers. I don't think those men were volunteers. I don't think this thing cares about that nuance. The sitrep ends with, recommend Damascus assets take custody of site before sunrise. It uses Damascus like an agency, not a protocol, an office, and then Nevada. Mountain Warfield, October 2025. Different service badge, different patch, same phrases, same countdown, same ask, same math, 12 bodies to hold the seal, or it opens. It is not one country, it is not one base, it is not one era. We've been trying to nail doors shut in rock and ice and salt water for at least 40 years, and we keep paying with people. We keep writing it off as training loss, cave-in, structural collapse, cold water accident, compartment fire, coolant leak, missing at sea. We wrap the bodies in classification and bury the math in appropriation subclauses, and we tell their families a rock fell. I can smell hot dust off my laptop right now. The fan has been running too long. There's a faint metallic taste sitting at the back of my tongue. My watch says 13:12. The wall clock in this motel says 03:47. Neither is right for Nevada, and I am not in Nevada. Time drift follows testimony now. That is new. Here is the pattern, clean. There is something under the ground, under old radar sites, under dead air defense stations, under desert test ranges, and under the seabed off SOSUS cables. It is older than the hardware around it. It is wired into that hardware anyway. It talks, but not first. It hums first. Instruments hear it. People hear it second. When it talks, you are told not to answer, unless you're authorized to answer, and the only people authorized to answer are the ones already compromised. It makes a trade. It says, hold the door shut, and I will not spill. It says, give me anchor mass, and the breach stays local. It says, walk away, and the breach follows. It says, if you leave me hungry, I will balance my debt on the nearest warm thing that matters to you. That last part is the enforcement mechanism. That last part is why men and women trained to shoot their way out of anything stand still and listen. We treat it like a reactor because we know how to fund reactors and write environmental paperwork around reactors. We bolt coolant loops into things that are not turbines. We print English labels and call that control. We write field integrity nominal on screens and pretend that is safety. We write Damascus Protocol on steel and pretend naming a thing means owning it. We do not own it. This is not paranormal. This is not a ghost story told on a podcast for clicks. This is infrastructure. This is logistics. This is recurring. This is repeatable. This has line items and part numbers and hand-machined adapter collars marrying NATO thread pitch to something that did not come out of any NATO catalog. And here is the part I cannot shake. In every single incident I can document, there is always one phrase in common across language, across decade, across badge. It shows up in English. It shows up in Russian. It shows up in bad Pashto from a Marine liaison who did 2 tours too many and won't stop grinding his teeth. It shows up in a British sergeant who drank himself quiet by 40. It shows up in Ledger's throat when he starts shaking and can't say Hana's name without swallowing twice. Witness, compliance, do not answer it if it talks. That is training language. That means there is already a manual. That means they are already teaching this to teams that will walk into the next hatch. That means there will be a next hatch. I can feel a faint vibration under the cheap motel desk. Not traffic, not AC. 12-beat pulse. Pause. 12-beat pulse. Pause. My molars hum with it. The air smells faintly like hot coin. My eyes are watering and I haven't slept in 21 hours. I can taste metal. This is already global. This is already doctrine. Ask for the next beat when you want it. I am in a motel off a frontage road 3 hours north of Las Vegas. The carpet is thin. The AC unit rattles in the wall like loose screws in a tin can. The bedside lamp throws a weak orange circle on the cheap wood desk. The room smells like stale cleaner, coolant leak, and cigarette smoke that someone tried to scrub out 6 tenants ago and failed. Under all of that, tonight, there is something else. Warm metal, burned dust, a faint sweet note like antifreeze. I have my notes spread in front of me. Paper, not digital. My laptop is on, but it's not connected to anything. Wi-Fi stays off. Bluetooth stays off. My phone is in the bathroom sink under 3 inches of tap water. The second hand on my watch is stuttering. It jumps in twos. It keeps trying to roll back. My throat tastes like copper. My teeth hum. The lights flicker, not random flicker, not bad wire flicker, pattern. 12 short pulses. Pause. 12 short pulses. Pause. Same cadence Bishop said he could see coming off cables under that ridge. Same cadence Torque said he could hear in his headset from nowhere. The lamp shouldn't be able to pulse like that. It's not LED. It's a cheap tungsten knockoff. It still pulses. I lean forward. My palms stick to the fake wood. The surface feels warm. Too warm for a desert night with the AC on full. I tell myself this is just adrenaline. I tell myself I haven't slept. I tell myself my ears are still ringing from the ride out of Tonopah. I tell myself this is carryover hum. Then I hear it. Footsteps in the hallway. No big deal, right? Motels have footsteps. Drunks, ice machine, late check-in. But these footsteps land wrong. Heel then toe, but slightly offbeat, like the ankle joint isn't quite where a human ankle sits. Too even, no limp, no weight shift, no shoe squeak. Just soft weight, controlled, deliberate, like practice. They stop outside my door. The hair on my arms lifts. The air in the room changes. Warmer, heavier. The AC keeps rattling, but it doesn't matter. The air feels occupied. I can smell hot coin. I can smell ionized dust, like someone popped a breaker in a machine bay. My mouth dries out. I don't move. The footsteps don't knock. They match my breathing. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Then something new. A faint click in my left ear like a throat mic opening on push to talk. I haven't worn a throat mic this entire trip. I'm alone. The click comes again. Then a voice slides in under my skin. It is Hannah's voice. Soft, tired, a little hoarse at the edges, like she's been talking over a fan. She says my name the way she says it when she's annoyed, but pretending she's not annoyed yet. Then she says, "You said you'd be back before the next scan." I swallow. My throat hurts. The room smells like warm coolant. My eyes burn. Hannah is 34 weeks pregnant. She does not know where I am. She does not know what Mountain Warfield is. She sends me voice notes. She doesn't call. She hates calling. She makes me promise I'll record things because she says my memory is garbage and hers is worse right now because she's running a full-time organ factory. Her words, her joke. I can hear the joke in the voice at my door. Same rhythm, same breath at the end. The voice keeps going. "I found your stupid ring," she says, and she laughs. It's a small laugh. She only laughs like that when she's embarrassed for me and happy about it. "You're not subtle. You think I don't notice a box-shaped lump in your cargo pocket the size of a matchbook. You're not 18. You can't hide things from me in your pants anymore. I tried it on. Fits. Little loose, but it fits. Don't freak out. I put it back. I'm not looking. I just wanted to see it." I stop breathing. The ring is gone. Ledger said that. He told me that sitting in that dead dental office with all the blinds taped. He told me he checked his pocket in the basin after they came up and the ring wasn't there. He told me he was going to propose in a parking lot with takeout dumplings and now he can't. Because the ring is gone, and because he can't bring Hannah within a mile of the line that hums 12-beat cadence. He told me Hannah has never seen that ring. The voice outside the door just described the box. The voice lowers, softer now. "I felt weird tonight," it says, like the baby was humming. Not kicking, humming. Like she swallowed a phone and it was set to vibrate. 12 buzzes, stop. 12 buzzes, stop. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. The air in the room shifts colder and I realize I'm crying. I don't remember starting. The footsteps outside the door shift weight, heel to toe, heel to toe. Too even, too gentle, too careful, like something practicing how to be comforting. "Ledger," Hannah's voice says. "It says if you walk away, it comes here. It says if you tell the wrong story, it balances. It says you tethered us. It says we are part of the field. It says debt is always paid." My stomach knots. I grip the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles hurt. I can feel grit under my fingertips. The motel air tastes like dust and antifreeze and penny shavings. My watch secondhand is jumping backward now. 13 out of 14. 13 out of 12. 13 out of 13. 13 out of 11. It can't pick a lane. "Hannah," I whisper. My voice sounds small at the motel room. Too small. I can hear my own breath coming back to me like an echo half a second late, like I'm talking in a stairwell. The steps outside stop. Silence. The AC rattles and grinds. The lamp pulses 12 beat. Pause. 12 beat. Pause. The air hums hard enough to make my molars ache. When the voice comes again, it's not Hannah's voice anymore. It's 12 voices, braided, male, female, calm, pleading, angry, crying, laughing. It's squad radio layered on top of a hospital hallway layered on top of a funeral home. It says one word: witness. The bulb over the desk blows. Dark. Only the alarm clock stays lit. Red digits. Too bright. They bleed into the dark like open brake light. The numbers on the clock roll without stopping. 0348, 0349, 03.12, 88, 888, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. The hum drops into my bones and sits there like a live transformer. In the dark, I see something on the desk that wasn't there a second ago. It's the ring. Gold. Simple. No stone. Tiny scratch on the inside edge from a bad keychain. Warm to the touch like it's been sitting against skin, not motel air. I don't touch it. I won't touch it. Because here's the truth they never write in the sit reps, and you need to hear it while my throat still works and my hands still answer me. This thing is not just under mountains and ice and radar stations. It is mobile. It is networked. It rides people. It rides signal. It rides memory. It can reach into a motel off a frontage road and lay a ring on a desk that never had a ring on it. It can pull the voice of someone you love and use her breath pattern like a key. It can count your debt, and it can name who pays when you try to run. And it is not sealed. Not anymore. If you're still here, if you're still listening, if you felt something in your teeth while I was talking and told yourself it was nothing, I need you to understand something simple and ugly and final. You're tethered now, too.